Welcome to my channel. It's called Forever Young, but it is really just about living healthier for longer. I turned 63 years ago. A few decades ago, that would have meant retirement and living out my days as an oldie. But I just wasn't, and I'm still not ready to be an old person. There is still too much fun to be had, and I'm sure I still have a lot to contribute. In the last half century, science has given us wonderful breakthroughs in hygiene and medicine, eradicating so many of the diseases that ended people's lives early throughout history. But although we've now extended average lifespans into our 80s, for many, the last decade or two of life are marked by increasing pain and disability. There's an epidemic of obesity sweeping the developed world, and along with it, a host of conditions like arthritis, dementia and diabetes that were seldom seen in past times. We might have increased our lifespan, but we haven't increased our health span. In the last 10 years though, we've seen incredible advances in our understanding of human metabolism and the mechanisms that contribute to aging. Scientists are discovering and testing interventions which can slow down, even halt some of these processes in their tracks. So it's become a possibility now that we can actually extend the years we're able to enjoy living into old age without those debilitating conditions like arthritis, diabetes, dementia, Alzheimer's. Diseases which seem to randomly afflict so many people in their so aptly named declining years. It's my passionate belief that by understanding how the human body was designed to function when we evolved hundreds of thousands of years ago, and by adapting that knowledge to the time and circumstances we find ourselves in now, we can design a lifestyle that not only increases our years of functionality and good health, but that perhaps lets us live longer. Many of these diseases and conditions that plague us as we age are actually modern. They're the end result of our obsession with comfort and instant gratification. When humans evolved on the grasslands of Africa, we didn't have plentiful, delicious and calorie-rich food at our disposal whenever we felt like it. In those times, a family might only have a meal a day. Our bodies have amazing systems which allow us to get through lean times when we might not find food for extended periods. Because even though we might not have eaten for some time, we still needed to have energy on hand to find and prepare the next meal. Likewise, we are designed to adapt to the extremes of weather we might encounter. There were no air conditioners in those days to provide an even, comfortable climate all year round. When we bypass these systems, they break down. And because all our systems are interconnected and interdependent, we start developing these modern conditions that characterize aging. So I think that by allowing ourselves to feel a little discomfort and sacrificing a few of these modern pleasures, we build resilience and we exercise the body's innate ability to regenerate and stay healthy. There's a growing field of research which suggests that eating a more varied diet with lots of fibre, eating less often, short bursts of intense exercise, lots of sleep and spending much more time outside experiencing nature and the elements are the keys to extending our lifespan. This journey started for me when I turned 60 and just before we entered the COVID era. Turning 60 was a real wake-up call for me, as I'm sure it is for many people. It was then that I became aware that I was really starting to age. We live in the incredible outdoors in a tiny town at the bottom of New Zealand's South Island, right next to a pristine glacial lake surrounded by mountain wilderness. It struck me I wasn't outdoors all the time like I used to be. My hair was greying, thinning out, knees and back were giving me trouble, and my physical strength, especially in my legs, was starting to wane. For years, a massive visceral fat had grown around my torso and my weight was creeping towards 100 kilos. This realization was a bit of a shock. Like I said, I wasn't ready to be old and I wasn't going to accept it as inevitable. This is when I really looked into intermittent fasting and the keto diet. These interventions were really getting a lot of airplay around that time, and it looked like I could ease in gradually. I could start just by cutting some things out and changing when I ate. Initially I just gave up little snacks, especially the habit of having a strawberry milk before work and another one along with a pie and a packet of chips afterwards. This was doable, a small sacrifice, but already cutting a whole lot of sugar and simple carbs from my day. Next step was to swap out beers in the evening for low-carb cider. Soon I was skipping breakfast and starting my eating later in the day. With these interventions, I shed around 4 kilo in 3 or so months, and I started to feel much more awake and energetic. This was when I became ready to take a bigger step. I undertook a couple of 3-day fasts, and this is when the visceral belly fat finally disappeared. For the first time in decades, I was under 90 kilos. Eventually I got down to 87. Since then, I've worked through several months on a keto diet, eventually moving on to a low carb regime, and now the focus is on lots of fibre, with nothing white, things like refined grains, pasta, bread. More whole food, and varying my daily feeding through 1 or 2 meals, and occasionally multi-day fasts. Now, as we get older, resistance training becomes really important for maintaining our muscle. I've trained with weights for most of my life, but at this point I found body weight training and calisthenics, which is a truly functional and, for me, much more inspiring style of exercise. Resistance training, while it's incredibly important as we get older, can be pretty repetitive and tiresome. It can be difficult to maintain momentum and drive. But I discovered calisthenics. It's a form of training with just my own body weight. Calisthenics is centered around gymnastic style feats, things like handstands, handstand push-ups, one-legged squats, planches where you hold your body rigid parallel to the ground, just balanced on your arms, and then more advanced versions of these and other moves. These moves are sort of aspirational. They're achievements you work towards, progressing through other exercises which increase in difficulty, gradually building strength, skill and flexibility. The great thing about calisthenics is that it doesn't just develop strength or simple skills as in weights training. Progressing a move like handstands means building strength in the shoulders, back and core. Continual, dedicated daily practice is needed to build the neuromuscular connections to coordinate the move, and at the same time stretching and movement exercises to gain the flexibility and the joint mobility to be able to hold the whole body in a straight line from the hands through the shoulders and to the hips and the feet. The hero moves of calisthenics are the aspiration, because they're the things most people couldn't even approach doing. So I took on the challenge of training handstands, something I hadn't thought possible at my age. It didn't matter how long it would take. Younger, stronger athletes with coaching might achieve an unsupported 30-second handstand in a few months. For many people, it can take a year or more. I've actually been at it for 2 years now. There have been long periods training daily against a wall where progress has seemed non-existent. Every now and then, I'll unlock another key so that I'm now achieving 5 or 6 second holds without any support. It's so exciting when every now and then I unlock one of those keys to achieving handstands or another skill. Younger folk might get there much faster than me, but it's such a cool goal, the inspiration drives me onward. Over time, I've added other gymnastic goals to my repertoire and more exercises to build the necessary strength and skill and flexibility. I'm actually at a point now where I'm stronger and more flexible than I've ever been. Now, my body isn't exactly ideal for this type of work, given that I'm 1.94 meters tall with especially long legs. It takes much less strength to control shorter, lighter limbs than mine. So calisthenics is suited to shorter, more compact athletes. I also realized early on that at my age I need to progress more carefully to avoid injuries, and that recovery from exercise also takes longer. Training has been tricky without a physical coach because we're in a remote location, but YouTube has been my saviour. I count Tom Merrick from Bodyweight Warrior, Chris Herrier, Daniel Vadnal of Fitness FAQs, Artem Morisov and many others with YouTube channels as my coaches and inspiration. So join me as I explore the science and new discoveries around hacking aging. Come come along on my adventures outdoors in this beautiful part of the world, biking, hiking, kayaking and swimming our rivers, lakes and waterfalls, enjoying exercise and healthy, delicious food, having fun, resting fully and listening for what our bodies really need. All this as an experiment to see how we can grow older and still enjoy what life has to offer. If any of this excites you and you'd like to contribute and build a community around these ideas, like my video, subscribe to the channel, or let me know your thoughts by commenting below. I look forward to hearing from you.